One of the smartest people in the automotive industry worldwide is former General Motors executive Michael Dunn. He should be a CEO of a car company. He has said this: China is gutting Western automakers. The formula: scale up, flood in, and starve out. And this formula that Chinese car manufacturers are using is certainly not novel. It's not new. Chinese companies have been, and not just Chinese companies, but companies from other countries as well, have been using this strategy now for decades. But it appears that legacy automakers, as I obviously and many others predicted 5 years ago, just weren't prepared for it and still are not prepared for it. Guys, I'm with PowerShop for my EV charging electricity plan. You can get a $100 credit on your electricity bill. Plus, if you sign up with my referral link in the description below, you'll get an additional, that's $175 of credit to sign up to PowerShop. I use the EV Day Saver plan. And the reason is because for those 2 hours from 12 till 2 p.m. in the day, you get electricity completely free. So yeah, 2 hours a day, it's probably going to cover your electricity bills for your EV every day. Basically, you can charge your EV for free on this plan. I'll put a link in the description below. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. China is gutting Western automakers, whether they realize it or not. Make the world more dependent on China. Make China less dependent on the world, said the president of China to Politburo in a dual circulation strategy in May of 2020. Make the world more dependent on China, make China less dependent on the world. That's exactly what they are doing. I mean, China owns 80% of the world's battery production, and pretty much all of its affordable battery production. If China's goal, Michael Dunn says, is total domination of the global auto industry, the master plan might look something like this: scale up, build enough capacity to supply more than half of the world's annual demand for vehicles, and they're still scaling up. Flood in. Number 2, launch a frenzied push of exports into markets worldwide with aggressive pricing, take large chunks of market share. I've just reported this week on countries where that's happening. Number 3, starve out, restrict competitors' access to key material and manufacturing inputs, thereby limiting their ability to build competitive products. Now, number 3 is a bit controversial. I don't entirely agree with Michael on this point because I think that competitors are doing it to themselves. I don't think China has necessarily banned most rivals, legacy automakers, from using their parts and batteries and everything else. But competitors have tried to be kind of arrogant in a way. I mean, it doesn't make sense, a lot of the decisions that they've made. For maximum impact, says Dunn, you would take these actions at hyperspeed, crunching a decade of effort into the space of just a few years. This is precisely what the PRC has been doing since 2021. Just look at the numbers. China today has enough annual capacity, 50 million, to supply 55% of global demand for vehicles. By comparison, the world's next largest automotive manufacturing nation, the United States or America, builds just 10 million cars a year. So China has about 5 times the capacity of the US. This extreme overcapacity has ignited brutal price wars in China, which the Chinese government says they're trying to stop, but they're not really, causing profits to vanish, largely anyway. This is forcing Chinese automakers to face an ultimatum: export or die. Innovate incredibly quickly or die. So, the flood in. What is actually going on here? No one wants to die, of course. Dunn says that including China's 107 car companies, China this year will export a world record 7 million vehicles to more than 100 countries worldwide, up from only 1 million in 2020. I mean, if they can increase from 1 million 5 years ago to 7 million this year, how many are they going to be doing in 2030 or 2040? I think it's pretty clear. Chinese cars are pouring at a breathtaking pace into virtually every nation in every time zone except the United States and Canada, because they've been banned there. Never in 100 years has the auto industry witnessed such explosive growth in exports from a single country. I mean, we often think about, hey, remember when the Japanese came to the US and Europe and flooded the world with cars, but they didn't do it anywhere near this speed. Clearly, there's more than natural market forces at work here, says Dunn. Last week, I was back in the UK, he says, visiting Chinese dealerships where MGs, BYDs, and Chery vehicles are flying out of showrooms. And as I reported yesterday, the Chinese manufacturers have taken record market share this year in Europe, but particularly also in the UK. BYD sales in September topped 11,000, up 880% over the same month in 2024 in the UK. The UK is now BYD's largest market outside of China. Over lunch in London with Peter Fleet, former CEO of Ford China, I learned that BYD and other Chinese brands plan to be market leaders by 2030. I'm sure that comes as no shock to most of you. The Chinese accounted for 13% of new car sales in September, Fleet said, and I have that number going to 30% within 2 years, more than doubling within 2 years. Western automotive leaders seem stunned and confused, like deer in headlights. The rapid Chinese advancement, says Ford CEO Jim Farley, is the most humbling thing I have ever seen. Farley and his peers in the West know that they need to deliver ultra-competitive products or they will soon be out of business. Unfortunately, they risk never getting out of the blocks. China last week announced limits on exports of key automotive manufacturing materials from rare earth magnets to battery materials. And this is actually accurate. They are changing what they will sell outside of China. Without those inputs, factories in Europe and the United States will come to a standstill, as happened to Ford earlier this year. And China may actually use this to encourage Europe and the US to remove tariffs on their vehicles. Rare earth magnets are the most extreme example of China's tight grip on pivotal inputs. Every car has hundreds of magnets, every one of them. Magnets are particularly crucial, though, in EVs because magnets shift electricity into motion at the wheel. No magnets, no motion. EVs don't work without them. In fact, most cars, pretty much every car doesn't work without magnets. The implied risks go far beyond the automotive industry. America's F-35 fighter jet contains 900 pounds of rare earth metals. The refined versions of those metals pretty much all come from China. China dominates rare earths, refining and processing 90% of the world's quantities, manufacturing 93%. That's not the worst part. China is also restricting access to the machinery to make those crucial inputs. They want to pull everybody else down with them, said Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent this week. Maybe there is some Leninist business model where hurting your customers is a good idea. Kind of ironic for the US government to say that to China, though, isn't it? So Bessent has slammed China, basically saying they are going to cause enormous pain for the US. But the US is probably causing some problems for China at the same time. China's fierce escalation did not come out of nowhere. In August, China's top trade negotiator, Li Chenggang, warned Americans that he was ready to play hardball. He was pretty unhinged and very aggressive, said one US official present at the meetings, stating that the US would face a hellfire if things did not go his way. Maybe Bessent is right, says Michael Dunn. Maybe China is following a Leninist playbook. Look at China's undefeated record using overwhelming scale and predatory pricing power to take over industries from solar panels to shipbuilding to drones. The pain for Western automakers is real, says Dunn. As a group, they are selling 8 million fewer vehicles in China than they did 5 years ago. But that's not really the full story. See, the full story is that the vehicles they're selling now, they're making far less than half the profit that they used to. 8 million now is, well, a big difference. Now they are under siege at home, especially in Europe. German automakers this year will produce the fewest number of vehicles outside of the 2008 financial crisis since the year 2000. Volkswagen, Mercedes, and Bosch, perennial blue chip companies, are closing plants and laying off tens of thousands of workers. The figures could be in the hundreds of thousands by the end of the decade. China's playbook is clear, and it's working. Scale up, flood in, starve out. What's less clear, says Dunn, is how the rest of the world will respond. And at this point in time, it's more just the rest of the world is just looking on in shock. Like a deer caught in the headlights. What do we do? The auto industry, long built on global supply chains, now finds itself at the mercy of a single nation's industrial policy. This is no longer just an automaker's problem. It is a question of economic security, industrial survival, and strategic independence. The real test now is whether companies and governments can work together to build new and reliable supply chains and secure access to the materials that power the modern world. And the answer would be, well, they can't really. We are very dependent on China, and that's not about to change anytime soon. If the world does not act, though, collectively, says Dunn, it could soon wake up to find the entire mobility industry and the technologies that flow from it running on China's terms. I said this 4.5 years ago when I started this channel. People think I'm paid by the Chinese government to warn the rest of the world of what was coming. That's what I've been doing for 4.5 years. Would it be in the Chinese government's interest to have me, to pay me to warn the rest of the world of what was coming, of what was happening? I wouldn't say so. What do you think? Can the West, Europe, Japan, Korea, Australia, America, can they move quickly enough to build an independent automotive ecosystem? Or is the gap already too wide to close?